On behalf of the Manatee Chamber of Commerce, welcome to a very, very honored event with Ambassador Jose Cabanas. My name is Jonathan Fleece. I am the 2015 chair of the board for the Chamber, and I am humbled to be here with all of you and the great ambassador. I would like to open today with a quote from Alice Walker as a thank you. Thank you is the best prayer that anyone could say. Thank you expresses gratitude, humility, and understanding. Thank you, Ambassador, for gracing us with your presence. If you will please turn off your cell phones and refrain from taking any photos or videos out of respect to the Ambassador. We will have time after the Ambassador's remarks for questions and answers. We do ask, however, that those be limited to membership of the Chamber and their guests only. A member of the Chamber will walk around with a microphone and will hand you the microphone to ask your questions at that time. Before we acknowledge our elected officials who are here, if we will all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I would also, as I stated, like to acknowledge our elected officials and public servants here today. You can hold applause to the end. City of Bradenton Mayor Wayne Poston, Manatee County Judge Thomas Gallen, Manatee County Commissioner Betsy Benak, Manatee County Commissioner Vanessa Baugh, Manatee County Commissioner John Chappie, Manatee County Commissioner Robin D. Sabatino, Manatee County Commissioner Charles Smith, Manatee County Commissioner Carol Whitmore, Manatee County Clerk of Courts Chips Shore, representing the office of Senator Bill Nelson, Digna Alvarez. Please thank our elected officials. And finally, we would like to thank our sponsors for today, Kaiser University and the Mosaic Company. So with that, I would like to call Mr. Jorge Fernandez to the stage to introduce Ambassador Cabanas. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, and again, echoing your chairman's comments, thank you for your hospitality, for greeting Ambassador Cabanas and Jesus Perez, our first secretary from Washington. My name is Jorge Ignacio Fernandez. Some of you know me as George. I'm the one responsible for arranging the ambassador's visit, not only here, but as some of you may know, we had a wonderful visit to Port Manatee this morning, and the ambassador was very, very impressed. And then this luncheon, and then we move on to the Mote Marine this afternoon because of the exchange that's been going on with a scientist at Mote Marine and Cuba, and then the reception this evening at the World Affairs Council, which I'm on the board of directors also. By chance, I happen to be the CEO and major shareholder of Havana Ferry Partners, which I'm happy to announce will be making our base here at Port Manatee. And Mr. Chairman, I asked him how many members you had here at the Chamber of Manatee. He said 2,160. I said, you have 2,161. We just joined. So you've been very kind and very warm. The ambassador has been very, very happy with a warm reception from everybody here. I don't really have to go into his background, except I've had the pleasure of working with him in Washington on my projects, and does not need much introduction. He is the head of the intersection in Washington, soon to be changed to the Cuban Embassy. Please welcome my friend, Ambassador Jose Cabanas.
Well, sorry. Good afternoon. First, my apologies, because I was scheduled to come in February, and then we had to cancel at that time because we have the second rounds on official talks for reestablishing diplomatic ties and to reopen embassies. But after the apologies, thank you, Jonathan, for your kind words. Thank you, Manatee Chamber. Elected officials, my Cubanos, who are here with us today. It was a little bit long overdue. I have had many invitations from Carlos Brugueras from the Manatee port, and friends we have in the area. I visited like a year ago Tampa, and then we have some jealous people here, asking when are you coming to Manatee. But finally we are here. Jesus Pers from my staff at the intersection is with us as well. Probably I will be brief in my introductory comments, just to have the possibility to respond to your questions or comments. We came yesterday from Gainesville. Well, the Florida University had the 16th conference on legal and political matters, just devoted to Cuba this time. You had like 60 scholars talking about different issues, from history to legal framework to academic exchange. We were part of that, and then we decided to honor the invitation we had from you. We are quite glad to be here, and I will tell you more or less briefly where are we, since every day we have something new, not only about what has been happening in Cuba before the 17th, but also what is happening in bilateral terms after the announcement, after the rounds we have had, and a little bit about what do we envision for the next month to happen. Well, December 17th came as a surprise for most people, after a process of secret negotiation we held for a year and a half or something like that, as it was announced. President Obama made a series of announcements, and in his will to reestablish bilateral ties, reopen embassies, but also he said something important, which is a kind of an invitation for all of you to be part of a debate that still has to take place in Congress in order to remove the major obstacles we have limiting us from having normal ties, namely U.S. embargo, we call blockade on Cuba, that is still there, is still in place. At that time, we had other limits, like having Cuba on the list of countries that sponsor terrorism. We never belonged to that list. We all know why Cuba was part of that list from 1982, but never was a reason to have Cuba on that list, a country that many times offered the United States the possibility of having cooperation in that particular field. That obstacle is technically removed. Still, Congress has a few days until the end of this month to officially, clear this problem. And that decision deals with or addresses some of the problems we have to overcome to have better ties. Not all of them. Some people are misled when they think, well, once Cuba is not on the list of countries that sponsor terrorism, now we can do anything. No, many limitations are in place. We, since January, we have been discussing about two different groups of issues. Those which deal with reopening embassies and reestablishing links. Hopefully, this is something that could hopefully happen very soon. If you ask me the meaning of very soon, I don't know, but hopefully very soon. Let's say that very soon is the month ahead, this year. Let's have it like that. What I can tell you is that we have an ongoing dialogue with the State Department or federal agencies. Actually, I'm receiving calls right now related to that. We decided when we were on board at the plane, we decided to go ahead and honor the invitation, but until the very last minute, we were receiving calls from the State Department, not related to our presence here, but to precisely the negotiations. We have addressed the issue of, for example, our intersection didn't have banking services. We don't have still banking services, and we were without banking services for 15 months. You would imagine how it is to operate any business without a bank. We are becoming almost an organic embassy. We don't use plastic anymore. Everything in cash, money orders, and how to provide consular service to our community, then everything being done in cash and money orders. We are now in a process of negotiation with a bank from Florida, by the way, and hopefully soon we will have those services. And again, those are services for our intersection, not banking services to support bilateral trade. That's something different from that. It's only for our office, and then another obstacle to have full embassies will be removed. Some people say, well, you don't have a major result to show after you started negotiations in January. We don't have a big announcement to make. We haven't had any big announcement to make in the last month. My personal view is that we have done something historic, which is to sit and talk for the first time with respect as equals and try to address those issues that would be and could be the pillars of our bilateral relationship. We never did that, not during the last 55 years, not before 1959, and not to tell you, well, before 1898. Now we are having a comprehensive process of talks, official talks, not only with the State Department, a variety of federal agencies. We think we are moving in the right direction. You have witnessed how our presidents met in Panama during the summit in Panama. Secretary Kerry and our Minister for Foreign Affairs, Bruno Rodriguez Parrilla, and the rounds that have been led by Assistant Secretary Roberta Jacobson and Director General Josefina Vidal. Before December 17th, we were already involved in a series of talks about what they call technical issues. And technical issues, we borrowed this map from Carlos. It's the official map at the Manatee port. And the map explains mainly our neighborhood. It's something clear for everybody, but the map helps to explain those issues in which we have been talking and we have been cooperating. In some cases, at least a couple of them, we have an official understanding to do something. One of them is related to oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico. It's a multilateral agreement that encompasses Cuba, the United States, Mexico, Jamaica, Trinidad, Tobago, and Cuba. And the second one is a bilateral understanding for search and rescue in the Florida Strait. And again, being from Manatee, I don't have to explain you why do we need a search and rescue understanding. How many vessels we have a day in that area. that in many times they need some help. And in the past, we didn't have even a protocol to communicate each other. Sometimes the vessel is close to our borders, sometimes it's in US waters, but we have to assist them. For many years, we have had the presence, I would say for 13 years, we have had TSA people coming to Cuba, to Cuban airports. They know all of them. We have implemented the same safety and security programs you have in your airports here. People in Cuba are a little bit hesitant to take off the shoes still, but we are in the process. We don't understand why to take a plane we have to take off the shoes, but it's part of the program. And for many years, experts and scientists from NOAA, and again, being in Florida, I don't have to explain to you how important it is to have bilateral cooperations in regards to sea level, hurricanes, major storms. Well, for many years, experts from NOAA tried to reach Cuban experts in multilateral events in New York, in Geneva. Now, formally, they are involved in a set of talks. And we can name many others. Migratory fraud. We have 500,000 people coming back and forth from Cuba to the United States. Roughly 400 Cuban Americans, roughly 100,000 Americans and foreigners, residents in the United States. And we have an increasing number of Cubans living in the island that now visit the United States and return. It's a figure that is around 60,000, 70,000 a year. And those of you who have been dealing at some moment in your life with consular issues, you will know that as long as you have one passenger coming back and forth, you have a problem. If you have 500,000 people moving back and forth, I wouldn't say you have 500,000 problems, but almost there. But in regards to documents, many things, assistance, and then you would imagine that when the relations war broke out in 1961, we had 1/10 of the current migration in the United States. 150,000 Cubans lived at that time in the United States. We had half of the population we have today in Cuba. We are 11 million something. They were 5 million and something else. But at that time, we had 20 consular offices in the United States. I mean, our service was all over. We were able to cover all the states. Currently, we have one office in Washington, D.C. That's another area. Don't ask me where are we going to open the Cuban consulate in Florida. I don't know yet. That's another issue. That depends on the bilateral talks. We haven't addressed yet those issues. That will come. But when we do have the opportunity to open at least one other office outside Washington, D.C., well, our service will be better. I'm taking the opportunity now to take my fellow Cubans here, but sometimes you don't receive an answer or we don't respond to the call. You would imagine a few people trying to service 1.8 million or 0.5 Cuban Americans. Again, we have been addressing those issues from when we fought. Now we are involved in those talks. Those talks addressing the reestablishment of links and reopen embassies, they will not last that long, I hope. But for years, we will be talking about normalizing links. First, we don't have a definition, a historical definition, which is normal. Our relationship was never normal. And again, not during the last 55 years, but well before. But we have agreed that we have a list of issues to address. Some cases it will take more time, some cases will take less. But what happens in the United States and what happened in Cuba as well will have a presence on that list. Let's say if after a political debate in Congress the embargo is removed, well, we have something less to talk about. And, but that's why it is important that people understand that everyone has a say on those limits we have still for the bilateral ties. I have to mention briefly also that in order to understand what is happening bilaterally, you have to have some knowledge about what was happening in Cuba from well before December 17th, which is a domestic process, introducing many changes in our economy. Some of them are more known outside Cuba, some others not, but has been very meaningful in our lives. And in general terms, those changes gave the idea to the U.S. community in general terms, not only Manatee business community, but U.S. business community, that if they don't do it fast, they will miss the train. Because now you will see how many people, President Hollande from France just arrived in Cuba. He's in Havana right now. The Foreign Affairs Ministry from Japan visited Cuba last week. And then like that, you have a lot of visitors who are people looking to what is happening between ourselves. But they don't have the limits you do have in order to establish links with Cuba. I mean, they are benefiting from that situation. People from Canada, from Spain, from France, that's something that you know. The only new things I'm saying here is that this pressure is increasing. Now we have more delegations coming. And one of the projects that probably took most of the attention outside, and mainly in the United States, is what we have done in Mariel. It's a container terminal, it's a deep water port, surrounded by, some people call it industrial park, some people call it a free zone, we call it a developing zone of Mariel, where we have already companies arriving from foreign countries, investing and establishing there. And this gives a new sense of what is doing business with Cuba. We have some people here in the state that they still believe that the whole thing is what I can sell to Cuba. Well, Cuba now is a different economy. It's mainly a service-oriented economy. Our major exports are tourism and health services. Of course, we have other pros to share with your market, but the new idea of being a business partner with Cuba or a trade partner with Cuba, you have to realize that you can benefit also from services and products we have in our country. We have a priority of sectors that we want to develop, and we are developing. In many cases, supported or with the presence of a bilateral agreement with a particular country. We have 12 priorities as countries with whom we have signed those agreements. You have seen President Castro visiting, Raúl Castro visiting Argelia, for example. It's one of those countries in which we have a comprehensive set of agreements, and business are covered by those agreements. In other cases, like Canada, where we don't have an official agreement, but for many years, bilateral ties with Canada has been supported, for example, for the coverage that offer Export Development Bank that supports and provides and helps with credits with many producers from Canada. Again, this is something that we don't have in the States. We don't have any credit from you. Any food we buy is still in the States. We have to pay it in cash, in advance. We cannot use it, our chips, and you cannot import with those chips anything from Cuba. That's still there, is in place. And again, to reinforce that point, many ports in the south of the United States are now looking into what kind of relationship they will have with Mariel, because when the Panamanians finish what they are doing at the canal, you will have post-Panamax ships coming in. We have to think about transshipping with those huge vessels coming in, where the commodities coming to Manatee will do the transshipping. The map is helping. You have a few options. Mariel is one of them. If you had that option available, your prices will go down for operations. If you don't have that option available, your prices will go up. As simple as that. But Carlos can fix what I'm saying if I'm wrong. But the business, in that business, the figures, the numbers are public. We all know what they mean. But that's a big question now, and we are receiving a lot of interest from several ports, U.S. ports in the south. And we will welcome all of them the same way we do with other people from any other country. We don't have a special set of legislation for American business people. It's the same thing we have for everybody. We just passed a new law on foreign investment, and it's the opinion of the Inter-American Development Bank, based in Washington, that is the most flexible foreign investment law they have seen from Latin America in the last 10 years. It's their opinion. And the same thing with CEPAL, that considers the Latin American Economic Commission, that considers that the set of changes we are introducing in our economy in Cuba is the most comprehensive set of changes being introduced in any economy in the region in the last 10 years. Again, it's an non-Cuban opinion on what is going on. We have plenty of opportunities to share, not only with your business here in Manatee, in the state of Florida. If you look to the map again, we usually don't consider Florida as an actor of the, if we talk about Caribbean states, we don't mention Florida as something independent, you're not. But looking into the map, we can imagine how many dynamics we can have as a region, including Florida. Many problems are pending for solution in the Caribbean. Transportation by sea, air transportation, many others. In agriculture, by the way, we have a very important agricultural coalition working in Washington to change the rules. We share not only products, cycles for crops, but diseases. We have seen the reports published in the local media about concerns about Cuban products coming in. Well, we have very strong regulations for phytosanitary controls, environment control, are available, are none. And our point is we will do our best if we simply create bridges for people to talk, experts to get together and to share what they are doing, business people to go. Many of you will go and probably will not get a positive response, but others will do it and will get a positive response. For those of you who get the negative response, my advice would be keep trying. And if you don't do it now, you will do it in the future. Same thing happened with people coming from other countries. But you will find a counterpart in Cuba that has a precise set of priorities. We have defined many projects and are public, are available, are online, that we try to accomplish in Cuba. And again, we firmly believe that from that exchange and that cooperation, many opportunities will come. I will leave it here, and I will be glad to respond to your questions or comments. Thank you.
Okay. Do we have any questions from the audience? Please identify yourself and who you're with.
Thank you. Ambassador, my name is Armando Linde. I am former Secretary of the International Monetary Fund, now retired, living here. Thank you very much. Very informative presentation. We appreciate it. My question is, Cuba is going to need a lot of improvement in its infrastructure. Is Cuba considering applying at some point for membership in the World Bank and with that other agency across the street?
Well, good question. First, you're right. We consider that we need something like $7 or $8 billion a year to match our goals in economic terms. It's a money that has to come from abroad. We don't have it locally. We calculated that in order to respond to the plans we have in our economy has to increase by 5 or 6% a year. We are not getting there. We are in the middle. and that money has to flow. Our membership in one of those multilateral organizations it doesn't depend that much on our will as what other members in those organizations, how other members will vote, and how other members, I would say one member, will react to what it has as a local legislation. And remember that the so-called Helms-Burton Law, 1996, provides that United States cannot support and cannot provide any money for Cuba in multilateral organizations. But that doesn't prevent us from having, with World Bank, for example, which is an organization that has changed like others in many years. We have welcomed in Cuba many experts from the World Bank. They come in some cases to advise us on something. They come in some cases to learn from what we are doing. They are mainly interested in what we do in public health. The current president is an expert on diseases, is a physician, and he knows what we do in tropical diseases. And many people there would like to see what we are doing in Cuba and in other countries expanded to. In many cases, I tell companies involved in the building equipment and machinery for diagnosis in the United States, imagine what we can do with your technology and our knowledge in public health. As many physicians as we have deployed in Latin America, in Africa, that's only one case. You didn't mention BID, Inter-American Development Bank, which is in Washington. It has been transformed during the last 7 years. The presidency of President Luis Alberto Moreno from Colombia. And BID now is not only a bank, but also is a bank of knowledge. And they are proud to be that way. They visit Cuba often, and they learn from our people. I mean, we don't have money from them, but at least we share some knowledge. And my personal view is that at some point, that situation will change as a consequence of something else that will be happen bilaterally and opportunities that will unfold. But it's not something that we are discussing. We don't see any major change on any major opportunity now. Most of the funds coming to Cuba as foreign investment are private money in many cases. Mariel was built with a credit we got from Brazil, a company of Odebrecht, you all know, and it's a credit. I mean, the money has to be paid back. But that's the situation we have with those multilateral organizations these days. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Gracias, Ambassador, and George, thank you for coming here today. Gracias. My name is Park Wright. I'm a member of the Likes family of Tampa. And from about 1850 to 1960, we had ranches in Cuba, and we had the Likes Brothers steamship company going from Tampa, New Orleans, to Havana on a weekly basis and other ports. My question is about the assets and claims issues. Over the last 17 years, I've been able to have a little office in Havana. And one of the comandantes has offered a solution to the ranch La Candelaria. He said, mira, you can have a 99-year lease. You can, and I said, bueno, I'm not asking for the ranch back. I'm asking for permission to be a ranchero in Cuba. So a 99-year lease sounds very fair. So I propose this. The question is, I really need your help, Ambassador, when you negotiate these issues of properties. One of the solutions would be that former agricultural interests could bring our new technology from Florida, in our case Texas, and offer agricultural solutions for beef and things of that nature. In the case of cattle ranching, does this idea have merit with you because you're in the thick of the negotiations? Gracias. Yes.
Thank you for your question. Well, first, all ideas have merits to be considered, you know, if we have the aim of getting our people closer. Now, this is a subject that we are addressing as well in the negotiations. But this item is on the group of items to normalize links. I mean, this is not something that we are debating to reopen embassies or to reestablishing links. And we understand the importance of addressing that issue. Now, the thing is to talk about claims. We have to say that we have claims at both ends. Most of the media keep talking about the claims from American companies that were recognized through a process that was led by the State Department in the 60s, and they recognized 5,711 claims. That's the State Department list, it's not our list. We have to say that in the 60s, we were open to compensate the same way we did with French people, Spaniards, Canadians. You don't have a claim valid from any country these days. I mean, those countries, they don't talk with Cuba about that because all of them were honored. And there is a history, what our law provided, what we did with the sugar quota we had in this market. But the thing is, still, some people address the issue. I have to say, frankly, that many companies, they don't want to talk about that anymore. They say it's simpler. I mean, I want to do business with Cuba. We don't care about the claims we had. It's truth that all of them were compensated by U.S. authorities in a way of not paying taxes for the same amount of the claim. That's truth as well. But my point is, we do have claims from Cuba. I mean, we had properties in the United States, and we have the cost of the embargo, the blockade. But again, we have the willingness to sit and talk about claims. We can address them, and we know that it's important that any company in the United States that decides to do business with Cuba is not afraid of having a garnishment or a judicial action or anything like that. Then it's something that has to be addressed, has to be clear. We are in the process to talk and to agree on something. Mariel, you mean? Not that many, actually. Not that many. Our tourist facilities or facilities to welcome visitors, as we cannot talk officially about tourism here, are mainly around the tourist spots in Cuba. We are facing now a problem. We try to benefit cities and towns outside Havana, and you know how much Havana has suffered from that, but we are recovering Havana. But the main networks are in Havana itself, Varadero, Cayo Coco, which is over here. We have built many new facilities over here, to the north of Villa Clara. And we have, well, Santiago de Cuba also. And we have a lot of tourism in Jardines de la Reina, or Queen Gardens. But due to the environmental protection, we don't build any facility in that area. I mean, if you go fishing or scuba diving, you have to travel like 2 hours because it's a national park. In Havana, not in Mariel, I mean, it's a futuristic view. I mean, in Havana, we have a problem today with the availability of rooms. We have an increase of 15% compared to last year. I mean, the same 4 months compared to last year, 4 months. And most of the visitors coming from the United States, they prefer to go to Havana. It's not a kind of visitor that is looking for beaches and sun. You are plenty of it here. You look for cultural activities, history, Havana itself, old Havana. And it is a problem these days to find rooms in some moments of the year. As you have seen in our media, our experts, for example, talking about how the cruiser industry or the ferries could help to that, because then you will have rooms, not in hotels, but in ships. But we have to manage. Now we have more demand than the supply we can offer definitely in Havana is a problem these days. We have private houses, as you know, linked to the system. They are not only Airbnb, they are connected to Mintour, to services that they provide. But even with the availability of so many private houses, it's not enough.
Thank you for sharing your
Oh, we have one. Please go ahead.
the information and bringing us up to date on where the relationship is. I have an interest in possibly locating a manufacturing plant in Cuba. I realize that it's the relationship's in its infancy, so I know sometimes these things don't go that fast. And I know that your focus is in the diplomatic and political side, but is there somebody that a person like myself can contact to find out some more information about, for instance, like the import and the requirements that you have for hiring employees, those types of things, so that obviously you wouldn't be the person to tap for that, but if you could direct me in the right place, I'd appreciate it.
Thank you.
My name is Paul Murphy.
Thank you, Paul. We have, I mean, the good news, we will have a trade or a commercial attaché next month in our interact session. I mean, someone who will take care of all the requests and to respond to your requests. This is something that we have been doing ourselves. We diplomats are in some way pretenders. We pretend to know about everything, but we don't know about everything. But we have been taking care of the trade proposal or business proposal. We have been checking them with our authorities in Havana. We have provided opportunities. We were commenting at the table that Tampa local business community is going today. They organize a trip, the chamber from Tampa. And then we are addressing that. You have heard about how Governor Cuomo from New York went to Cuba with a group of business. President Donahue from the U.S. Chamber of Commerce visited Cuba, and like that, many others has been going. We have been taking care of that, and we usually facilitate those talks. You will consider that, as I said, in some cases, our counterparts or the, let's say, Alimport or any other Cuban company, probably they are not interested, but we always respond and say, well, probably not this time, at another moment, or they have other priorities. But we keep doing that at the intersession. But again, next month we will be in better conditions to address your interests. In the meantime, take Jesus' care, and we will blame on him if something goes wrong.
Jeff Greenacre. The question I have is that around social gathering and so on, probably the key topic is, are you going to Cuba? A lot of Americans have a thirst for your country. A lot of Americans want to come. A lot of Americans want to share our ideas and our thoughts and so on. So I think for us to become tighter, government's important. But what's way more important is people. Mm-hmm. Cubans to Americans, Americans to Cubans. So I see a great influx of people wanting to travel to Cuba. Once the embargo is dropped, there's going to be a lot of folks, whether it's private boats, airplanes, or take a swim. They want to come.
Diana and I have demonstrated that you can go swimming, at least to return swimming. Probably not go swimming, but...
With that question is this. Once they get there, you're going to have to accommodate. And what controls do you have in place that we don't overrun your country with too many people? And a companion question, would you entertain private American capital to come and help build that infrastructure for housing and so on in your country? Where we do a lot of that here, and a lot of us are involved in that type of work. Do you see that as an opportunity for us to help, and secondly, to help have our people-to-people, more folks coming and visiting and sharing our experiences?
Thank you, Jeff, for your question. Well, first, you have 12 categories of that now have a general license to go to Cuba, from journalists to religious groups and there is something called research, that a lot of people are doing research in salt waters these days, salted water. Research is, you name it, is to research about anything. But through those 12 categories, you have a lot of people going already to Cuba. I just mentioned the increase, the percentage we have registered. I have said that again, as a country, we have to address that. Keep in mind that we are a country like anyone else. We have institutions, we have regulations, from customs to migration, and many others. We have areas that are virgin, has to be developed. We have concerns of people about how do we protect the environment and tourists coming, let's say, as I said, to Garden of Queens. We have very strong legislation on protecting the environment, and we have a national agency taking care of that. The president of that agency has visited the United States in the last year several times, and it's an agency that has been responsible to say no to some foreign projects that has been introduced, and we say no, because that would change the environment in a particular key. As you know, we are an archipelago, 2,000 islands, small islands. It's Cuba, not only the big one and Isle of Youth. And then we have regulations in place. In areas like Old Havana, well, if you ask Eusebio Leal, the historian of Havana, how Old Havana is protecting itself from that invasion, his response is, the people who live in Old Havana is still there. They participated in the reconstruction of Old Havana, but they live there. They have the school of the children there. They have the nursery homes there. Then the local population is there to protect from what could happen. Some people are dreaming with a big M on yellow, big M at the middle of something. We will not have it. We can have it somewhere at some point. But one of our best possibilities to defend ourselves as a country is our culture. We are full of culture. We have a very young, but a very strong culture. And we have many things to offer ourselves. We don't have to copy foreign models these days, by the way, many people say, well, do you have a Chinese model or a Vietnamese model? No, we have a model, which is a tropical one, with mojitos and salsa and cohidas. And we have been learning from the experience of many countries. And to give you an example, one of the countries that we visited to learn more about a new tax code we have, was Sweden. And Sweden is one of the countries that has, for example, a well-developed system of cooperatives. When we introduced, probably 5 or 6 years ago, this change in which many people were coming out of the central ministries and they were more compact and they were involved just in regulations, not in the business, daily business. And you had people coming from the state-owned companies to private, small businesses. Most of them went to fully private business. In the meantime, they realized that having cooperative, it would be better for the project. And then we have a change now in that direction. But again, we have been learning from everybody. No matter we like fried rice and we have a Chinese community.
I wanted to, as we close the presentation by Ambassador Cabanas, we don't have to be a geography A student to realize the logistics of Florida. All of you here have such an advantage over the rest of the 49 states to trade with Cuba. And I think for those of you involved, I was speaking to your chairman, as the ambassador reminds us, if you're in the sectors of agriculture products, food, pharmaceuticals, you can be selling to Cuba now. It's not fair. It's a one-way street. And forget about letters of credit. It's cash in advance. And that's not fair. So any of you that are involved in those sectors and telecommunications, you've got a tremendous advantage right now to be involved with Cuba. And the ambassador keeps reminding all of us about that. So take advantage as we move on to more and more items. And I want to thank Ambassador Cabanas for his presentations and Jesus and his time, and Michael and Neil Spiratas, who was your former vice president of 30 years. He manned the first schedule. Remember, we had Ambassador Cabanas was very gracious in November when I met with him to do this great tour, and he said, okay, Jorge, let's do it. But then Obama made the December 17th announcement, and the ambassador's been back and forth to Washington, and we had to postpone. And every time I ran into the ambassador of the intersection of D.C., he said, Jorge, remind everybody over in Manatee and Tampa and Sarasota, I did not cancel, I postponed. But Neil, good time to retire after all the hectic things, and Mike, you did a great job taking over. And thank you all for being here today. And Jonathan, you're here.
I will conclude with a metaphor. If we allow the chains to hold on to us, we live in the past. If we break the chains, we can live in the future. Thank you very much for coming. God bless America. God bless Cuba.